Welcome to this presentation about why I believe that hypnosis scripts are worthless and why I use them anyway. And then I'm going to share some best practices for using hypnosis scripts and creating your own hypnosis scripts. This is an answer to a question that I got in another one of my groups. And when I answered it yesterday, it was so fun, I decided to go ahead and put it here on YouTube and Clubhouse as well. So if you see me looking down, I'm looking at my phone that's right here because I am live in Clubhouse right now, and I want to acknowledge my people that are in this room. And you here on Clubhouse, this presentation it's being recorded here in Clubhouse, and then it will also be available inside YouTube. And I have put a couple links wherever you're watching or listening. There's one link here to a resource that I'm going to be talking about in a few moments about when I talk about best practices for creating your own scripts. You can find all the links if you're watching on YouTube underneath this video, in the caption beneath this video. So to start off, when I trained, I did my initial hypnosis training with Mike Mandel, and Mike Mandel is not, he's not a pro script person. He strongly discourages the use of scripts. And the reason is that when a person is reading from a script, you're not able to make calculations and adjustments in real time based on what the person you're speaking to is needing. One of the most important parts of an effective hypnosis session is calibration, which means to pay attention to a person's subtle, their shifts in body language, their facial expressions, their breathing. You can look for trance indicators to see if they're actually going into a trance as you guide them into a trance. And so one of the reasons it's not useful to use a script is because if you're looking at a script and you're reading a script, it's really difficult, sometimes even impossible, to be calibrating the person you're speaking to be calibrating that hypnotic subject. So another reason it's not useful to use a script is if you go into a session at the start of the session, with a game plan in mind, there's a really good chance that that session is going to take a left turn. The person might be coming to you for anxiety issues. I apologize to people on YouTube. My nose just started running. I'm going to keep recording. So there's a good chance that, a person comes in for anxiety, and then partway through the session, all of a sudden we're talking about a childhood trauma, or we're talking about a relationship issue that needs to be addressed. And if we have this specific script and we're married to the idea of using that script, it's really taking something from the client in that we're not being willing to meet them where they are in the moment. So I have another presentation, and I did this is a Clubhouse room. I can't remember what it's called in Clubhouse, but there will be a link to this in the YouTube video. And what it's called on YouTube, if you in Clubhouse want to look it up, it's called the 4-step formula that ensures hypnosis works for you and for your clients. And in that presentation, I share what I learned from Mike Mandel, which is why hypnosis works when it works. So there are some amazing scripts out there. Scripts can work. And I'm going to tell you in a moment why I use scripts, even though I don't think they are necessary. But when a script works, when a hypnosis session works, when something conversationally works, it works because it follows a 4-part protocol, which Mike Mandel taught me as ADAC, ADAC. And I'm not going to go deep into this because I've talked about this a lot lately, and you can find it in that Facebook room. I'm sorry, that YouTube replay. But really briefly, when a person gets the change that they experience, it's because you have associated them into the problem, which means that you have helped guided them through a process that allows them to feel the problem while they are there in the session. So if a person struggles with anxiety, you actually bring them into the last time they struggled with anxiety and imagine that they're there right now, seeing it through their own eyes, hearing it with their own ears, feeling it with their own body. And what this does is it lights up the neural pathway. It lights up the neural pathway that allows the unconscious mind to understand, okay, this is the problem that we're addressing right now. So that first A is associate into the problem. And then the D is dissociate, which means bring them back out of it. And that's as simple as saying, okay, now be here now, look around the room and find 3 things that are blue. And when they're looking for things that are blue in the room around them, they can't be in that situation where they experienced anxiety. And it's that easy to pull someone out. And oftentimes that one little thing, that one little piece of a session, it takes, 15 seconds, can be the healing mechanism that helps a person realize I don't have to keep recycling this problem anymore. The next A is associate into the solution, or associate into the desired state, what a person wants to experience instead of that anxiety that they had. And so again, I'm not going to go in depth. I talk about ways to do this in that other presentation, but the hypnosis script is often a beautiful opportunity to vivify or to bring to life that desired state. So your hypnosis script can be a place where you help them just feel amazing, to start to incorporate a new way of looking at the world, a new way of showing up in the world in the place of that old limiting belief they used to have. And then the final piece of this protocol is the C for collapse. And that collapse means to collapse that new resource, that new amazing thing that you have vivified and brought to life during that hypnosis session, and collapse it into the triggers, the situations, the moments, the experiences that used to create anxiety. Now it creates peace instead, because they use that trigger that used to say, when I get on the highway, I freak out and my heart starts pounding, to when I get on the highway, I feel peaceful and calm. And I know I'm going to keep myself safe by utilizing best practices when driving on the highway. So that's it in a nutshell. And when a hypnosis script works, this is why it works, because you have lit up the proper neural pathway to help someone understand that it's safe to change. It's safe to let that problem go. And you've allowed their unconscious mind to unlock those changes on their behalf. So a huge part of this happens with intention. When you set an intention with your client at the start of the session. And many of you know, I think most people here in this clubhouse room know that I don't do one-on-one sessions at all. Once I read a book called The Power of 8 by Lynn McTaggart. It validated my experience that group hypnosis sessions are incredibly powerful. And I had been doing group hypnosis sessions for 3 years, every week for 3 years, by the time I read this data. And once I read the book and I saw the science behind why group hypnosis sessions are so powerful, I said, I'm done. I will not do any more one-on-one sessions. And of course I have made exceptions, but they are few and far between. So everything that I'm teaching here can be applied to one-on-one sessions, to group sessions, or to self-hypnosis sessions. If you're working with yourself on solving an issue that's been a problem for you. So the reason I use scripts, there are a few reasons. One of them is because I love the written word. I love language. Ever since I was a kid, like I was a terrible student in school, but I loved English. I loved language arts. I loved like understanding parts of speech, like the verbs and the adjectives and the nouns. And it's been so long since I did all this that I don't even know how to talk about it in the correct way. But one of my favorite things to do is diagram sentences, where you take a sentence and you pull it apart and you plug in all the different, that you make a diagram out of it and decide which word is modifying which word and which word's modifying the modifier. It was so fun for me. So I geek out about words. And I also think it's very therapeutic to write. When I create my scripts, I go into a trance myself, and I often experience an internal shift and an internal transformation just by going to that trancey place. And it's almost like I'm letting the words flow through me, which is just a really, really enjoyable experience. And, sometimes it can be difficult to sit down and create a script to create something out of nothing. And I experience the same thing when I write my weekly emails, when I'm creating content for my Workshops That Work program. Anytime you start with a blank slate, it can be so hard to get started. But there's this beautiful law called inertia. That's not what the law is called, but it's the law of inertia that says an object at rest wants to stay at rest. It wants to stay still. That page wants to stay blank. And then an object in motion wants to stay in motion, and it's going to stay in motion until something stops it. So often just writing, just starting to write, and I'm making typing noises, typing motions on YouTube, but you can also write with pen and paper. And writing with pen and paper actually accesses the unconscious mind and accesses creativity in a really unique and beautiful way. And so the idea is to just start writing, just write something, even if it makes no sense and you're just being ridiculous. And what happens is the unconscious mind sees your intention to create and starts to offer creativity. When I was a little girl, one of my favorite ways to escape reality, I didn't have a super awesome reality as a child. I grew up in a pretty rough situation. And my favorite way to escape was by reading The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. And so I read all those books multiple times. And then there were other kind of fantasy books that I would read, and I would escape into this metaphor. And that's really what The Chronicles of Narnia is. It's a beautiful metaphor. And so when I create my scripts, it's almost like it's accessing that Narnian experience for me. It's bringing me into this beautiful metaphorical experience that is just really enjoyable. And my intent when I create the scripts is never to prescribe a formula for how a person is going to change. I am not arrogant enough to think that I know what my client needs to change. But I do trust my clients' inherent wisdom. And this is why this can be so effective on a group call, because even if every single person on that call is there for a different reason and has a different version of anxiety that they experience, or a different version of the problem that your group call is meant to solve, your job is not to solve that for them. Your job is to unlock the answer. And these scripts, when you create a script with that intention in mind, it can create a beautiful metaphorical experience that allows them to achieve the result they're looking for. So the keys, another reason why I create scripts is because every week I do a group hypnosis session in my membership called Trancy Tuesdays. And it's mostly hypnotherapists that are in that group right now. I have plans to expand it and include the muggles as well, people who are not hypnotists, so that they can experience the transformation that's available on those calls. And they are so awesome. But since most of the people in that group are hypnotherapists, they want to use my protocols, and they're not my protocols, they're protocols that I've learned and adapted from others and then Lorified them, but they want to use those protocols with their own clients. So many of the people that are there because they both want to experience hypnosis and they want to experience that therapeutic healing for themselves. Because even as hypnotists, a lot of times we struggle with self-hypnosis, with feeling like this is going to, we can be good at this. It's hard to guide our own selves through it. It can be done, but it can be really useful to have someone else guide you. And so a lot of the people that come to those calls show up to experience hypnosis for themselves. And I've been told over and over again that since they know they're going to get the script at the end of the session, they're able to relax more deeply and not try to analyze what's happening, but just allow themselves to experience that healing. And then I give those scripts to people and I tell them, you can use this exactly as it is. You can modify it. You can do whatever you want with it. And people really appreciate it. So even though I don't think scripts are necessary, I do use them. And I actually really enjoy using them. And I fully believe that my scripts are not what creates the change. Any script is not what creates the change. When a change happens, it's because you have followed that ADAC formula that I mentioned earlier. John Overdurf teaches this as the meta pattern, and I have not learned from John Overdurf directly, but I have learned a great deal from his student, Melissa Tears, who teaches this exact same principle as the meta pattern. So I hope that's helpful. So Before I wrap this up, I want to talk about some best practices for creating scripts if you decide you want to create a script yourself. And the very first one is to let yourself get into a trancy place as you create the script and to set an intention for the outcome of that script. And 90% of the scripts that I create can be used for anything. So you can use any script for any problem because it's essentially a metaphorical journey that guides a person through the meta pattern. And so you can apply it to anxiety, you can apply it to addictive behaviors, you can apply it to just, anything that a person struggles with. There are a couple exceptions. One is I have a script called The Masquerade Ball that I created as a way to help people heal relationships, heal tension that is happening in relationships. And this is a relationship that a person, either it's healthy for them to stay in it and they just need to solve some things, or maybe it's more healthy for them to walk away and create a boundary and distance themselves. It just creates healing and helps. Well, I won't go into depth, but that's what I'm thinking of. That's kind of specific to a topic, but generally speaking, they can be used content free and they can be used for just about anything. So it's just like whatever metaphor you enjoy the most, you just choose your flavor of magic. So best practices in creating your own scripts is go into a trance as you create, just let yourself get in a state of flow and notice that as you start writing, the ideas start coming. If you try to formulate the ideas before you write, it's less effective than just starting to write and allowing the ideas to come after. I find this is true in so many areas of life. In business, I tell people you have to put yourself out there on social media, and they'll say, I don't know what to talk about. And I say, that's okay. Just find one thing, just make one video, just put one post up, and like attracts like. When you start posting on social media, you'll start having more and more and more ideas, and those ideas will just flow to you. I know Elizabeth is here in the room, and she has like the most awesome social media presence. I love seeing her Facebook stories, and I don't watch all of them, but when I do, they're so inspiring. I just want to give you a shout out. And she doesn't run out of ideas by the fact that she shows up. I think every single day she shows up, those ideas continue to flow. And that's what happens is as you start to write that script, those ideas will just begin to flow. Okay, so inside the hypnosis session, whatever script you choose, the keys, and I learned this also from Mike Mandel, is to show up to build rapport. And there are beautiful ways to build rapport as a group. That's my favorite kind of rapport is group rapport, where you have everyone on the call. And I usually have just under 40 people on my calls. Everyone on the call is in a place of connection and beauty, and we're creating this beautiful environment that aligns with what I learned from Lynn McTaggart in that book, The Power of Eight. But when you're in rapport with someone, you can stumble over your words, you can choose the wrong script, you can say supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, and that person is going to get the change they seek. And then there's also that intention between you and the participant or participants on that. I say on that call because so much is happening virtually, but this works obviously as well in a one-on-one an in-person session. And then one of the things that is so important is showing up with, Mike Mandel calls it prestige. And that seems like a really big word to me, like prestige, it feels almost royal to me, but it's stepping into your confidence. It's stepping into an understanding that you are not the key. You are just the unlocker. And by allowing yourself to make big, bold promises and tell them that, get ready. Are you ready for freedom? If you're ready to experience freedom in this area, then close your eyes instead of being like, oh, well, hopefully this will work. I don't know, this might work. Be confident, make big, bold promises. And if you have prestige and rapport with that person, you are doing your job as the unlocker and helping them to step into the place of solution that they are cultivating for themselves. For me, there's a great deal of freedom knowing that I'm not the one doing it. I am simply the guide. And so a few more best practices, and this is where the link that I have in the top of this clubhouse room, if you're listening to the replay, there's a little banner at the top of this clubhouse room, and that's a link to Mike Mandel's hypnotic language cards. There's also an app. I think it's like $50 to get the app, but it's called Salad Cards. And that's something that I geeked out on. I was flat broke, but I invested in that app. And I think Mike Mandel's language cards are just as they're even better. But they're different. So you could actually utilize both if you wanted to. And what they do is they start to teach you hypnotic language patterns, the kinds of the ways that you speak and the ways that your words can flow together in a way that goes into the unconscious mind and helps you unlock those internal resources for someone else. And I will incorporate those into my scripts. You know, like I said, I geek out about language. I geek out about how to use words in a way that evokes images of beauty for people, that just gets people feeling amazing. Because when someone starts to feel good and they start to think about what it is that they want, it allows the unconscious mind to start to create visions and pictures and images of where they're going. And that's where the key happens. A person who has been struggling with the problem, they've been spending so much energy on resisting this, which means they're giving that problem so much attention that they're stuck inside of it. And when you start to just create these beautiful hypnotic words and create this flow and create a positive environment for them to start to think, what if it could be different? Them simply focusing on where they want to go unlocks their ability to get there on an unconscious automatic level. So again, when you're creating a script, I recommend just going in and starting to utilize different language patterns. And there's so many simple ones. I won't go into that now because of that card deck that I referred to you and the Salad Card app. I haven't looked at that app in quite some time. I don't think I have it on my phone, but I think it's still a thing. It's awesome. And I know Mark has shared before that Igor Ledachovsky has some language card resources as well. So that would be something to Google. I would imagine if you Google Igor Ledachovsky and hypnotic language patterns, you would find that. He's an incredible resource. So another best practice for creating scripts, and even if you don't create a script, this is something that's really important inside a session, any session that you do. And this aligns with that final piece of ADAC, the collapse. When you're collapsing the positive resource into the trigger that used to trigger the problem, it's now going to trigger this positive thing, is future pacing. So you want to bring them into the future and say, okay, I want you to imagine being in this situation that used to trigger that problem and experiencing this instead. And imagine what life is going to be like a week from now, having experienced this over and over and over. What's it going to be like a month from now, a year, 10 years from now? And sometimes I'll bring them all the way to the end and I'll use this languaging. I'll say your long, beautiful, joy-filled life. Because sometimes people don't like thinking about the end of their life. Most of us probably don't. So when you pre-frame it that this is a beautiful time, you've lived years and years and decades, and you're looking back on this moment and you're noticing all the places where this change has taken place. And this isn't something they can consciously do. Like they can't consciously go through all those instances where this has made a difference, but the unconscious mind can start to install this resource. And that's another important thing that I learned from Mike Mandel. You explicitly tell the unconscious mind, okay, put this in place, this awesome change, plug it into all the places where the problem used to be a problem. And you can go into the past and you can say, okay, at the start of the session, I had you vividly imagine being in a place where this is a problem. And I want you to go back into that place, but frame it like this, say, as you feel this, as you're feeling this amazing feeling, I want you to bring this into that situation that you thought of at the beginning and notice how different it is. Notice what has changed when you have this resource. And that begins to install that resource for the unconscious mind. And you can plug this into your script. Again, the premise behind the script is you're trusting their unconscious mind to do it for them. You're not trying to tell them how to do it. You're not micromanaging the experience. And this is hard for me, you guys. I'm kind of a control freak, but it's really liberating for me to know that it's not up to me. It's up to their unconscious mind. Okay, so I want to talk really quickly about calibration. I had mentioned this at the start, how important it is to be paying attention to the person you're speaking to and notice how different things are landing. Notice, you know, if you say one thing, if their voice, if their face softens into a more trancy, soft, relaxed state. And on group calls, this can be tricky. And so I'm going to tell you how I do this. And I had an aha moment about this the other day because I went to the skating rink. I grew up on roller skates, and it's one of my favorite physical activities. And it was like back in the 80s, it was kind of geeky and nerdy to be to roller skate, but it was like the one thing I was good at. That in my mind, I felt like it was the only athletic thing that I was good at. And looking back, that was just a limiting belief. But I love roller skating, and I haven't been roller skating in several years. And there's a skating rink about 45 minutes from me. They're almost all closed down, but there's one about 45 minutes from me, and they have an adult skate every Wednesday. I promise that there's a point to the story. And last time I went, there were like 20 people there. It was adult skate on Wednesday from 8 to 10 p.m., which is actually like 10 p.m. is past my bedtime, but I make the sacrifice. And it had been 3 years, I think, since I've been. So it was like pre-COVID, and there was hardly anyone there. And I enjoyed that because I'm kind of introverty. I didn't have to like talk to anyone. And I just enjoyed having lots of space on the skate floor. So last Wednesday, I went to skate, and I get there about 5 minutes after the doors had opened, and there's a line going out the door, and it looks like they're like teenagers, which I know they're not because it's adult skate. So I'm assuming they were college students, and I live in a college town. And I get inside, and it's packed. I think there had to have been at least 300 people there, and I was floored because it's like, okay, skating is cool again. Everybody is here. And I got on the floor, and since I hadn't been on skates in a while, I wasn't as sure-footed as I usually am, but I skate at a pace that's a little quicker than average. I'm not trying to like be super fast or anything, but I had to weave in and out of people. And there's certain points on the floor where like, this is where most people exit. And so I knew like, I'm keeping this soft focus, and I'm noticing, okay, this group of girls is kind of following this pattern. And this guy over here is going faster than me. He's about to whoosh his way around me. And this guy, oh my gosh, this girl is about to fall. And so I like veer around her. And I'm not really looking at any one particular person. I just have this soft focus on what's happening so that I can maneuver my way through. And it's not something I'm even consciously focusing on. It's like just this unconscious intention that I'm going to get around these people safely and smoothly. And it just happens. And as I was maneuvering around the skate floor the other night, I realized this is how I run my group Zoom sessions, where there might be some guy over here who is like talking to someone off camera or standing up or moving around and really being very distracting. But I know that since everyone else has their eyes closed, that I can kind of feel into the general what's happening in the room, and I can just calibrate it's almost like I'm calibrating the feeling of the room rather than looking at each individual person. And, you know, I'm not going to wait for this guy over here to hang up from his phone call and get back into a trance. I'm gonna speak to the general like a general feeling of the room. And it's incredible to watch the way people's body language will shift as a group. And a lot of that is because of the exercise that I do at the start that just brings everybody into that rapport filled safe space where we all are kind of connected right at the start of the call. So I keep a soft focus on the room. I don't, like I said, I don't look at specific individuals. Once in a while, if I know there's a specific individual who's really hurting and struggling, I will look at that person as I give certain suggestions and hypnotic commands. And these are things like feel better now, install this change now. It's not specific, like this is how you're going to do this. And so the way I do this, and if you, gosh, this is another thing, I'm going to put a link to this in the YouTube video. Because I want to stop telling people to email me because there's going to come a point as my YouTube channel goes viral soon that I'm not going to be able to answer all the emails, but I want to make sure you have this resource. So I'm going to put in a resource that shows you what I'm looking at when I look at my screen. I actually created this for a program that I did, I think about a year ago, and I showed people how I do my Zoom calls and how I look at my scripts. So I have a large monitor, and I have my camera is right in the middle of my monitor. It's not, it's on a bendy arm, and I actually show you, like I give you links to all of these resources in the link that I'll share in the caption of this YouTube video. So I'm not looking at my camera, but it looks like I'm looking at my camera because I'm looking at the people who are on my Zoom screen that is positioned right behind my camera. So I have my Zoom screen taking up a portion of my monitor. And then on another portion of my monitor, I have my, my script, and it's inside a Google Doc. And I actually adjust the okay, I'm gonna have to click it. So if I click File, Page Setup, it's the margins. I adjust the margins, and I make the left margin 2 inches and the right margin 3 inches. And that creates a really narrow strip of text. So I can superimpose that script right on top of my Zoom screen, so that it's not covering the faces, but I can read that script, and it's like my eyes aren't quite positioned at the camera, but they're not looking down or looking off to the side. And I can quickly move my eyes back and forth between the script and the room, so I can calibrate as I read that script. If you were doing this in a one-on-one session, you could have your script on your phone, and you could be scrolling through the script and hold the phone up so that you can be looking at the phone and then look at the client, look at the phone, look at the client. Ideally, you don't use a script. Ideally, you just trust your unconscious to know what to say, when to say, and you just allow the words to flow through you. But whether you're reading a script or not, you will skyrocket your results if you go first. You go into a trance first, and you get into that trancey place, and you just allow yourself to relax. You allow your breathing to relax. When you tell the room, and I often include this in my scripts, to be here now, you allow yourself to be here now. And if you're in rapport with this person, as you go into that trance and you let yourself get in that trancey place, they automatically are going to follow you, because they've been following you when you say, okay, close your eyes, place your hands in your lap, place your feet flat on the floor, and they do those 3 things. You all know this is called the compliance set, and it means that they're willing to follow where you lead. And so when you put yourself into that trancey place first, even if you're just faking it, anything that assumes trance causes trance, and that's just a fancy way of saying if you fake it, it works just as well. So even if you pretend to be in a trance, it allows you to really go into that trance, and for the people who are in that session with you to follow. Okay, I hope this has been helpful. I'm really enjoying doing these rooms. I'm so grateful because my daughter Cassie insisted on me becoming consistent in Clubhouse over a year ago. And so I've been doing these Clubhouse rooms every Monday and Wednesday at the time it is in your time zone, at the top of the hour. And it's a really cool experience for me. And I've started now putting them on YouTube. I don't put every single one on YouTube because sometimes I'm not ready for my day yet. And so I don't want to put the camera on, but I'm putting more of them on YouTube. And it's really been cool for me to see people leaning in and enjoying and thanking me for these YouTube videos. So if you enjoyed this video, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel and comment below and just let me know how you like this. Let me know whether you're in Clubhouse or YouTube, what you'd like me to talk about on future topics. Luckily, a few people have been doing this, so I have several topics lined up. And if I get my act together, I might just pre-schedule a few Clubhouse rooms so you can see what those topics are. But I'm very open to your ideas. Just let me know in the comments below this video what you'd like me to talk about in the future. I was going to say nothing is off limits. Let me say almost nothing is off limits. And I hope you all have a beautiful day. Thank you so much for being here. And I will see you if you're in Clubhouse. I'll see you here on Monday, same time, same place. And I hope you all have a beautiful day.